Some people have identified with traumas. Some people have identified with depression. When you identify something as who you are, you start to live out the reality of that thing. And so you find that your identity has to be authenticated by something higher than you, someone higher than you, for it to be valid.
Is it possible for us to have multiple identities?
Multiple identity is given fraudulent, but we can have multiple functionality.
So do you call yourself like an advocate for women in the workplace?
Women being able to get to a point of emotional intelligence is so important, where they are not driven by emotions when they are making choices in the workplace, but with reason, with logic, focusing on delivering value. One of the things I tell them is that you don't apologize for your brilliance. You don't apologize for your genius. The world needs it. Don't present yourself as a nice to have. Present yourself as a cure. I feel like if God was called our mother, people would relate more.
Thank you very much for joining us on this episode. Today I will be sitting with none other than Mrs. Kemi Fred-Adetiba. She's a ball of expressions, really, because I know her as a pastor, as an educator. I know her also as a musician. She has some tracks that you should check out. I also know her as an identity coach, and she's someone that embodies a whole lot of things. But one thing that I actually wanted us to dwell on this episode about was the fact that she's actually championing a new generation of women who are actually taking their place, as people in the marketplace, people in the family, people in business, people in enterprise, whatever it is that God has called them to be, helping them find that fire, and helping them fulfill that purpose. So I brought her on board today to just discuss the issues around identity, because I find it affecting society a whole lot. You see a lot of people going around feeling lost, losing meaning of life. So we'll delve into various conversations, and I promise you it's going to be a very exceptional one. If you're just starting, call your friend, share this video, and I'm sure at the end you're going to thank me. See you in the episode. When I was preparing for this podcast, one of the things that I was looking out for was, they shared your profile with me. I'm like, okay.
Was anything surprising? Or like,
I'd always known.
Okay.
But I think what I saw was different expressions, right? In terms of, like, you wear many hats. So how do you currently describe yourself to people? What do you say you do?
Okay. It depends on the environment I'm in, depends on who I'm speaking to. But I internally, I'm very aware of the fact that I'm God's daughter first. I think that identity issue for me is like the foundation. It's my foundation that I'm God's daughter. So in a corporate setting, I can't necessarily tell them, oh, I'm God's daughter. Even though I would love to, I would say it with all my chest. But the truth is, people respond to outcomes a lot. They want to know how they can relate to what it is that you're saying. So I'm God's daughter that has several expressions. And a lot of times there are certain things he would have me do. And that's why I can do many things and not be confused, because those things don't define me. It's just an expression of maybe the grace that I'm walking in that particular season of my life. But primarily, right now, I would describe myself as an educator because of what I do as my 9 to 5 with the school that I work in. An executive director of Unique Blossom Schools, and also co-pastoring the church, the Finishing Church, with my husband. I'm an identity coach as well. And so those are like the three core pillars that I would most likely put forward. I was at a dinner the other day. It was a corporate dinner, and everybody had to introduce themselves. And so I introduced myself as an educator, and I do this faith-based. I educate people in the faith world. I educate people, especially women as well, on their identity and their purpose, that kind of thing. And also educate the next generation.
I'm sorry to ask this question this way. You identify as an identity coach.
Yes.
What's identity, and why how do you define identity? I think currently we are quite in an age where lots of conversations are about that. I kind of understand its importance,
Yeah.
but like when you hear someone's an identity coach, you're quite curious as to
What that
why
is
that.
about.
Yeah, because I mean, you are many things. I know you do a lot of things around helping people develop, discover, and deploy their talents. You do a lot around workplace emotional intelligence and workplace dynamics. But how do you define identity and why identity?
Okay, so before I go to definition, I think I would start with why.
Okay.
I remember I found myself in a space where I was always giving counsel. So even back in secondary school, I mean, what did we know? But somehow you would have friends come up to you to say, oh, this is what I'm going through. This is what is happening in my life. What do you think? Or I'm dating this guy and this is what is happening. Or just, light stuff. And in the process, I would share whatever came to my mind or what I knew to be right or what I had learned over time. And so I just became that. I found that I became that go-to person, and it didn't stop even as I continued to grow. And so when we continued, the journey, I realized very quickly every time I was counseling someone that there was a core issue, and it was always identity related. Whether it was marital, whether it had to do with their workplace, whether it had to do with certain emotions they were feeling about something, one major issue that always came up or that would be highlighted to me would be that of identity, that this person needs to know who they are. If they know who they are, they will be able to function optimally, irrespective of wherever they find themselves or the circumstances they're in. And so at the time where I started to pray into it, I remember identity coaching came to my heart. I had also, spoken to my mentor and done some courses on just personal development. And in the process, I realized that, okay, I have a passion for bringing people to that place of certainty of who they are, confidence in who they are. And I had never heard of an identity coach before. It was something that just came into my heart. And I was like, you know what, that's actually what I'm going to do. I will coach people into becoming confident in their identity. In the process of doing this, I found what I lean into as the meaning. So I remember researching on identity, and I found that identity is actually gotten from the word that from the root word that means same, S-A-M-E. And it piqued my interest. Like, okay, that's interesting. And from that moment, I noticed that there was a question that was asked to me, I'm sure by the Holy Spirit. But the question was, Kemi, what are you saying with? So your identity essentially is what you are saying with. So what you identify with, what you agree to be who you are. And I started digging deeper into it. I started digging deeper into my own life. I noticed that even certain things that were recurring in my life was as a result of the gap in my understanding of my identity, or I had become same with something that was not true or was not me. And so that was how that started. And that's what I would say identity is. It's really aligning with what you believe to be same with. And that gets interesting because some people have identified with traumas. So that is now the identity. Some people have identified with depression. These are real things that happen to us, but they are not necessarily who we are. And so that's where people start to make the mistakes, because when you identify something as who you are, you start to live out the reality of that thing. And so sometimes even when people want to break away from it, they find that it is harder because they've partnered with it. It's now who they are. And think about it. Think about your passports, international passports.
Yeah.
When you have your name, your data on it, when you want to go into the UK, for example, you get to the immigration. And when you get to the immigration, they look at the passport and they're looking at you. What are they looking for? They're looking for sameness. They are looking that the person who is standing before me is same as the person who we are looking at their document.
Yeah.
And so that sameness is what gives you access. I mean, all things being equal, that you have your visa and all of that. So there are instances where they're looking at the picture, they're looking at you like, okay, you look kind of different. That becomes maybe an issue. And so you see that even our identification, like your identity cards, driver's license, it's an identification of who you are and what you are saying with. And so whenever they're looking at you, they're looking for the similarity. And so it then begs the question, who are we, or what are we supposed to be saying with? Yeah, so that's how you discover your identity. Start to find out, what am I supposed to identify with? What should people be looking at? And looking at me and seeing similarity.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to what I've been discovering recently,
Yeah.
also when meditating on the issue of identity, has been the fact that a lot of times identity affects meaning.
Absolutely.
And it's what necessarily gives meaning to life.
Yes.
For a lot of people. And a lot of times, because, I mean, you spoke about traumas. I mean, right now we have people drawing identity from their work.
Yes.
That's the particular task they are working with. So the moment that gets taken away, life loses its meaning.
Exactly.
And people also draw their identity from the fact that, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
But is it possible for us to have multiple identities? Or is it something that must be singular?
Well, I mean, multiple identity is giving fraudulent, if you ask me. But I believe that we can have multiple functionalities.
Okay.
Drawn from one identity.
All right. So I think that's what I was trying to
get. Yeah. So people can have multiple functionalities depending on the grace or the gift or the talent or the skills that you have, but you're drawing it from who you actually are. So you can be graced to. And this is why it gets tricky speaking about this without speaking about our source, because essentially this is what I believe. This is my belief. And so I believe that we are supposed to be same with God. I believe that our true identity is gotten from him. And the reason why I believe it also, when I look at the natural things in the earth, like the identity card I spoke about or the passport, is that when you find the passport, it usually says property of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or whatever country that has issued it. And when it's missing, give it to the police or something like that. And so you find that what authorizes that identity card is a government body. And so you find that your identity has to be authenticated by something higher than you, someone higher than you, for it to be valid. And so as people, I believe that our identity has to be validated by a higher force, a higher power. And that's why I believe God. And that's why I think that we are supposed to be same with him. Now, when you think about God, God cannot be boxed. God cannot be constrained. He is creativity in and of himself.
Yeah.
And so depending on what is necessary, depending on where you find yourself or what you need, what is needed in that environment, you can find that there's something of you that can be poured into that place. And so you don't box yourself. You don't have to box yourself to think that it just has to be one thing. You can actually express diverse things depending on, again, there's also the level of the mind, the level of the exposure that you put your mind, you give your mind to, can actually determine how far you can express all the different dimensions of who you are. And so, yes, your identity is one, but there could be multiple functionalities. You can actually express yourself in different ways, in different forms, as needed,
I think something that comes to mind is singular identity, multiple functionalities, right?
Yeah.
But what are some symptoms that you've observed dealing with people? Because, for example, myself, in the organization that I run, in TM, I have seen people come and go.
Yeah.
And I've seen that a lot of times, the ones who have gotten the best value from are people who have an understanding of who they are, who come from functional homes,
Yeah.
people who, it's almost like, sometimes I actually get very grateful for their parents. Like when I hear that it's their parents' birthday, I send them money. Because
That's amazing.
I'm like, okay, for you to have produced such a contributory human being,
Yes.
So I found out that a lot of times our who we are on the inside, because identity has a lot to do with the inside,
Internal, yeah.
affects the quality of work that we do on the outside, right?
100%.
But what are some symptoms that you currently have seen in society, in the workplace or in businesses, that reflect to you a problem with identity?
Okay. Generally, how people relate with one another. I feel like the quality of friendships people are having now is a telltale sign. One of the other things I would also say, even marriages, quality of marriages, people are getting into relationships with people that have no bearing with who they are, their core, they don't share the same values. But because they don't even know who they are, so they're just going ahead to pick whoever is available. So not knowing who you are can affect your choice of a spouse. And you can end up in a situation that you didn't even plan. You're with someone who is either, there's issues of domestic violence, and there's issues of, because how do you explain a lady who a man is beating her,
Yeah.
but she's still staying there? There's core identity issues here. There's also in the workplace where you don't feel confident enough to give of yourself because you think that they want to just use you. It's an identity issue as well. I see that a lot, even in the workplace, where people feel they're just using me, not realizing that it is who I am and I have what to give. If I don't have what to give, then there's nothing for them to collect, and I'm not being used. I'm actually giving of myself. There's a difference. So people who are secure in their identities are able to give of themselves in any environment. So workplace dynamics, even envy amongst colleagues, jealousy amongst colleagues, maybe because somebody got best staff of the year or something. And that now starts to make you feel dissatisfied. And before you know it, you are like, you know what, I don't even feel fulfilled. So this lack of fulfillment, a lot of times it's as a result of not knowing who you are. I can go on and on. From depression as well, you can tell. There's certain levels of depression that is caused from a dissonance with your core self. Yes, it's like you are living a lie, or you are not living fully, you're not living to the fullest who you can be. You will be depressed. There's no way around it. And so there's also family dynamics, maybe where you find yourself in a situation where the parents did not really show love, did not show care, they didn't show concern, they are not as invested in the children's lives. You would find that there will be core identity issues. I work in a school and I deal with teenagers who do from different homes, different types, different dynamics. They show certain characteristics and traits that you're like, yeah, it's an identity issue and it's from home. Parents comparing their siblings with one another. Those things are things that affect, and it's a sign that even the parents don't really know who they are. That's why they are like,
like that, yeah.
So there are quite a number of things in our general relationship with one another. You would almost find an identity issue rearing its head, so at some level, and we are not all at the same level in terms of our evolution in understanding who we are. We evolve in our understanding of who we are. It's not something that is static. So depending on the level you are at, you can find that the gap could be leaking. Could be leaking at different levels. So yes, those are some of the areas I would say they show. Yeah, they show in those places.
Something that I was thinking about when you mentioned the idea of identity playing its role in depression.
Yes.
And us also evolving. I think another thing that I see, you spoke about evolution, right?
Yes.
But is it more like I am evolving to become this person, or I am already this person. There are different schools of thought I've seen.
Yeah.
So they say, oh yeah, this is who you are, but you are being unveiled. Or this is who you are and this is who you are already.
Yeah. So I believe that we are, and we evolve in our understanding of who we are, like who we already are. And one of the things that gives me that notion, again, is because the way life is, I feel like we are just living out a script that has already been written, and we're getting to see how everybody ends up, or how we all play out, right? And so I think that our identity is something that is determined. That's one thing, you don't come into the world. You don't come into the world, I beg your pardon. You don't come into the world and like try to figure out, oh, what's my name? You actually named. It's the one thing that you have no say. Like your birth is the one thing. People even choose how they die. But your birth is not something you can choose, you can determine. None of that. The way you come, it's nothing, it's outside of your control. That just shows me that there's a power that is beyond me from the beginning. And so I come into the world and I find out my name. So you come into the world, you are like 1 year old, 2 year old, and then you start hearing mommy calling you a name. And so that already shows you that there's an identity that has been given to you. And as you grow, you start to evolve in your understanding of what that identity is. So even something as literal as a name, you start to find out, okay, what does Kemi actually mean? What does Elijah mean? Mommy, why did you give me that name? What happened? Was there a story around my birth or something like that? That's in literal terms. Now, in the core term of identity, which is like now your internal person and your internal essence, you find that there's something that has already been written about you. And that's actually what is informing my next book. There's something that's already been written about you. And discovering it helps you to live out that script. And so it makes it easier for you to live out a script. And so we don't all like the same things. We are not all drawn to the same things. We didn't all have the same environment. So it shows that there's something unique about each person that has been written or has been determined. And we all evolve in uncovering what that
So,
thing
but
is.
do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that you mentioned the environment, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that that also plays a role.
Yeah.
Do you think we are just beings of consequence? Like the very fact that if your parents never necessarily gave birth to you in Abuja,
Yeah.
or maybe gave birth to you but moved to Abuja, you might have been something else, and there would have been an alternate path
Yeah.
towards your journey and your experience on the earth.
Yeah, it's very possible that you could have had a different experience, but you have the experience you have. And you have the experience you have for a reason. And it has brought about the understanding of who you are today. They probably wouldn't have been TM Global if you were not born in, I guess, Nigeria. Were you born in
Yes,
Nigeria?
Urban
Yeah.
Nigeria.
So it's very possible that we would not have experienced what we're experiencing today because without you being born
But
here.
that's a whole lot of variables.
Assumptions, yeah. And then it's also very possible that so this is how I see it. So because I'm a believer, I believe in the word, I look at scriptures to find
You're a pastor.
patterns. Exactly. I enjoy serving the Lord. But the thing is, when I look at the scriptures and it tells me, before I formed you, I knew you. There was an ordination before you even knew your name. And before your parents even decided they wanted to come together, I had you in mind. And I decided to plant you in their lives. It means that God already knew that that's the family I'm going to come from. He knew that in 5 to 10 years' time, we'll probably relocate from Lagos to Abuja. He knew all those factors that would trigger my evolution. And he found it, at least to the point of my awareness. So when I get to the point of awareness, it now becomes a conversation between me and God himself. So it's no longer my parents' story. It's no longer about whether they are making the right choice or not, or whether they even did the right things or not. It now becomes about me and my maker. Am I now journeying according to the scripts that has been written from the point of my awareness? Yeah.
That's quite interesting. I mean,
So yes,
so I mean, you spoke about your book, right? And but your new book that is coming out.
by the grace of God,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you. This is like this gonna be your third book.
it's going to be my third year.
So in the previous book you did, I mean, the title was really really captivating. Woman, you are fire.
Yes, I believe so.
And I saw a lot of ladies jumping around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a whole celebration really when that book came out. A lot of lives were changed. A lot of
Thank God.
testimonies that I saw.
Thank God.
But what exactly motivated you to write that book? And the central message, I mean, was around identity and
Yes.
women understanding their purpose.
Yeah.
But I mean, what about the men? Are we not fire?
You are. I feel
I mean,
like
I'm just kidding.
in the
But
womb
like,
of every woman is a man. And I remember that day. This is just to be funny. I remember the day of the conference when we were launching the book. The men in the room were like, you know what? That they found a way to go about it. So they used like a Yoruba. They kind of twisted it in a Yoruba way, and they were like, "Whoa, man, you are fire." Just to be a part of it. I honestly believe that we are all carriers of this grace of God, male, female. But I believe that there's a season in which there's just this clarion call for women, and it's because of the enemy's strategy over time in trying to reduce their impact and reduce their voice or make them not heard or not seen. And for me, what inspired the book was a personal revelation. So I didn't think I was going to write a book. It was a conversation that I was having with the Holy Spirit when I thought I was weak. I thought I didn't have strength in me. I thought, what is happening? My life just felt unexplainable and it wasn't pleasant. And in the process of that, I heard the Holy Spirit tell me, Kemi, you are fire. And that jolted me. I remember when I started writing about it, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'm writing and I'm feeling the presence of God in the room with me as I'm writing. And I always tell people that I did not write Woman, You Are Fire. Like there was a force that wrote it through me, because I can't explain how in less than 2 weeks, everything was put together, and it was a revelation of what God was telling me about the women he's raising in my generation. And what is interesting about it is that they are going to function in different capacities across different mountains. The mountain of family, you find women who start to feel fulfilled being women at home, because somehow it has also been kind of like even something as beautiful and as privileged as being a woman who raises her children at home has somehow gotten a connotation of smallness and weakness, and it just feels less. And God started to show me that there are women who are fire who are going to be at home, and that is their point of assignment. There are women who are fire who are going to be in the marketplace, and that is their place of assignment. People in ministry, that is their place of assignment. In governance, he started to speak to me. People who start to have a burden for the women on the streets, the ladies, who are standing, giving of themselves, and all of that. And sex workers, basically. And I started to have those visions and seeing that women are going to start to have that boldness to step into their different offices, no matter what it looks like. So that's the central theme of the book.
But I mean, like, what's one common challenge that you've basically witnessed in trying to mentor young women right now?
I would say, and I think it's a general theme, and we all go through it. So I don't want to sound like, but the truth is, the feeling that they already know. So, and I think it happens to all of us. I believe that from teenage years, from like when you turn 18 to like 25, I feel like that particular age, there's just this sense of growth and maturity you have, but it's not the kind of maturity that you can trust without counsel and mentorship. And so I would say that that's been the hardest one, seeing women who are making the wrong choices, or young ladies who are making the wrong choices, but they believe that they're making the right one. And so you kind of have to also let them grow and journey out of their mistakes, but giving them room, giving that grace for redemption when they realize it, So I would say that's been the toughest part. And also information overload. There's also so many information out there. There's just so much information. Everybody can watch a video. Everybody can watch a YouTube podcast. Everybody can, and they feel like they know. And, as a result of that.
So, but do you see women becoming, like, in terms of the challenges they go through in the workplace, right? Yeah. What are, like, the common challenges you found that women are facing when it comes to navigating workplace dynamics?
I feel like it's more internal. And this may be controversial again. I do believe that there is the workplace prejudice of probably pay gaps and maybe even sexual harassment. Those are real things that happen in the workplace. So I don't want to gloss over that. Those are challenges that women face.
Pay gaps?
Yeah, some people, it's getting better now, but in certain environments, you will find that it is probably, you're probably most likely going to pay the male counterpart more than the female. But now that women are showing up even more, you can see that, okay, it's about competence and value rather than gender. But it hasn't always been that way. Also challenges that they can't control. So even things as simple as maybe pregnancies and, all of that. In this part of the world in particular, maternity leave is not something that is properly managed well. I take, for example, I work in a school and the women who get pregnant, it's like, okay, so what happens in the period when they're not away? We get, do we get a contract staff? So it gets tougher for women with such dynamics. But I would say, apart from these things, women being able to get to a point of emotional intelligence is so important, where they are not driven by emotions when they are making choices in the workplace, but with reason, with logic, focusing on delivering value without personalizing and internalizing every corporate experience in the workplace. Because women absorb, we absorb everything. We don't know how to compartmentalize. Sometimes, I don't want to speak as, generic, but it's common. And so we have to be more intentional about not attaching emotion to every experience we are having in the workplace, just so that we can have a healthier experience.
Most women typically take it all in.
Yes. So yeah.
So, but how have you found in your practice when mentoring women to teach them how to regulate it?
Yeah, and I think, men too have a lot of work to do when it comes to emotional regulation, because they do what we call suppress rather than absorb. So women absorb, men suppress. It's just as bad. So for emotional regulation, I would say that one of the core things is questioning. You have to, when an emotion is not in your awareness, you are not empowered to deal with it. So one of the best ways to deal with an emotion is actually to question it. So there's something called questioning, like deliberate questioning. Where is the source of this emotion? Because every emotion is driven by a thought. Every emotion is driven by a thought. So you say, where did this emotion come from? What was I thinking? Or what is the thought? What is the prevalent thought that caused me to feel what I feel? And when you think about that, you now start to see, okay, I was feeling this way. I thought this happened. My boss did this, or I said that, or my colleague said that, and it made me think this way. And because I thought this way, I started to feel this way. Now, when feelings are sustained over time, it can cause mood. So that's what becomes a mood. So a sustained thought or a sustained feeling becomes a mood. It stays long enough, it becomes a belief. So if it stays, so in order to manage it, it's to go back to the point. So that questioning is a very key technique. Like, where did this come from? Is this thought true? So being able to put it on the table of truth and fact and saying, okay, is this factual? Is this true? Okay, if it's true, how can I manage this, or how can I resolve this? Because some things you may not be able to resolve, you can just manage. Some things you can resolve, So you have to know the difference between what can be resolved, what is within your power for resolution, and what is in your power for managing. And that makes you, so you see that it takes that deliberate effort.
Yes.
Deconstructing your emotions is actually what helps you become emotionally intelligent. And then not just being too self-conscious, but self-aware. So self-consciousness is somebody comes into the office now and you're like, and maybe let's even just say TM now. You walk into the office and then one of the team members just sees you and they're like, did I do something wrong? Did I do something? There was a way he was not, looking at me. There was a way he was looking at me. Maybe I did something wrong. And that now starts to make you fidget. And before you know it, you actually do something wrong. That validates the belief, the thoughts that he did something wrong.
Yes.
Or because maybe your emotions give you away. Maybe you start to act a certain way to somebody as a result. Because again, emotions are like emails. They are electronic motions. So you will actually move as a result of your emotions. So you know how we say don't be driven by them? Emotions, just be aware of the emotions you are feeling, because you would always move in the direction of what you feel most times. And so it's important to now, question it. So that's self-consciousness, like, oh, okay, what did he say? But then self-awareness is saying, okay, I noticed that his disposition has made me feel uncomfortable. I need to be able to find out, is it me or is it him, or is he going through a bad day? So that difference just makes you say, okay, I noticed I felt the discomfort because of your own emotion. And so I can regulate myself and say, okay, maybe it's not me. I can figure it out later. Has nothing to do with me. And I can figure it. And even when it does, being able to say, okay, maybe it's something I actually did. I would spend time to talk to him later at a better time, or I would give my best, just so that, So that's how you can navigate your emotions.
Would you call yourself like an advocate for women in the workplace and for women in because there's a whole drive towards DEI, ensuring women participation. So I assume obviously you are part of that. Like you always want to give women opportunities to express themselves.
I believe so. Honestly, I believe that giving women an opportunity to express themselves is giving a dimension of God, an opportunity to be seen wherever that woman is. So it's not a blanket statement in that every woman must get an opportunity, but every woman who carries something of value should be given an opportunity to express it. I believe that. So it's not a call for incompetence or to promote just to promote a gender. It is actually about not cheating ourselves of the possibilities of brilliance just because it is a woman that is carrying it. So any opportunity we find, and so every opportunity I find when I am hiring or have the opportunity to hire, or I look out for those who carry value. Most times, yes, I have a bias towards women, I can't lie, but I think
I'm also guilty of that. Because at the other day I was telling someone, I said most of the leaders within TM are actually women.
Oh, I love that.
So, but let me leave it at that.
Yeah.
I like it. I like working with them. I love the quality of output, even though they won't be there.
Exactly.
And they always give above and beyond.
Yeah.
But in the issue, I think one of the things I also observed when working with a lot of women is the fact that I think women doubt themselves more than men do.
Yes.
And they overthink things than a man would do. So what a man will simply say, in fact, let's do it. A woman might spend, so how have you been teaching women, or how can women learn to overcome that and go for opportunities? Men to go through it, to be sincere, but how can people go past those limitations, those mental limitations that have been formed as a result of some level of false identity that has been installed in their OS?
I'm glad you said that. I'm actually even glad you said what you just said about installation in our OS, because a lot of it is conditioning. And you can only be you can only be what you have been conditioned to become. Like, you can't be beyond your conditioning, no matter how. And I think that is why Nigeria is the way it is. I believe that Nigeria is the way it is because of our conditioning. So we are conditioned to try and look for the shortcuts. We are conditioned to maybe cheat our way through, look for someone we can bribe through something. We're conditioned to litter the environment, to be okay with an environment that is not clean. I mean, those are really, really unhealthy conditioning.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of re-engineering of the mind. So there has to be a mind re-engineering for a new conditioning. It is possible. Our brains are elastic. We call it neuroplasticity. So our brains have capacity to learn new things, to go in a new direction. In fact, when Nigerians travel to all these countries that are well put together, we adjust to the conditioning of that environment. You see, so just to go back to your question, then it is a matter of re-engineering of the mind, and that's one of the things I really, really, put to women. I have a mastermind for women where I share insights with them, and one of the things I tell them is that you don't apologize for your brilliance, you don't apologize for your genius. The world needs it. Don't present yourself as a supplement or a nice to have. Present yourself as a cure to cancer. A must have. And so it is so important that we start to see ourselves differently. And that's why I do the work I do with identity coaching, because mind re-engineering has to be based on new truth and new information. You cannot condition your mind with another level of falsehood. So it's introducing them to new truth, new information, that it's okay for you to actually go for it. It's okay to take risks. Women are not brought up to take risks, especially in this part of the world, because there's a certain way you have to be. My brother picked up my father's car at the age of 15. I couldn't dare. Like, it didn't even come to
your frame
of mind, and so the man is just built to just take it on and take those risks. And he bashed it, but again, he still went on and picked another car, and before you know it, he learned how to drive. He never went to driving school. I did. So women are taught to follow due process, order, and all of that. And sometimes in that conditioning, which can be a good thing, it then becomes it now becomes to our own detriment, because now we are afraid to take risks. So being able to re-engineer our minds to say, you know what, it's okay to even make mistakes, because women are not giving that room, especially if you were the firstborn like I am. So you're not really, because you have people looking up to you. You have people, so you're not giving room to make mistakes like that. So realizing that, okay, mistakes are just part of the journey towards my evolution and my best self. So it's okay.
Mastery.
Yes, towards mastery. So it's really okay. And so that's part of the work that, I get to do, to just share with women and re-engineer their minds. It's a lot of work, but it's work that is very rewarding. And at the end of the day, I'm seeing the women that I coach doing amazing things and not afraid to be the bosses or not afraid to take up space. One thing, how that they say, oh, lady, this thing where you say, oh, my boss always says, or this person always says. One thing you can ask anybody, Lady Kemz always says, once you finish a statement, you cannot say, I hope it makes sense. I will never allow it. I must address it. So everybody in my mastermind knows now that you don't say, oh, I hope it makes sense. You can ask, do you understand? But that I'm making sense is already a done deal. So I feel like that's one of the things that, women have to, start to learn and adjust.
Yes, but also as a woman building an enterprise, her running a family, it's a cliche question, but I often believe that it's a conversation.
Yes.
I believe it's a conversation because from a man's perspective, it seems like it's not a question
that comes up for men.
Yeah, that comes up for men, right? Because they'll be like, but I think I understand why it does come up for women.
Absolutely, I do.
Because there's a whole lot that happens in a woman's world. Sometimes it feels unbalanced.
Yeah.
Because she's having to have children and still work along the side, and there will be times off with her male colleagues. It's like they are getting some mileage. I always believe that God will compensate, but like, I mean, being able to manage those multiple, what have you found as like your own method of
Yeah.
maintaining the madness?
It's, I love that. Maintaining the madness. So let's call it maintaining the mission.
The mission, right?
So,
Okay.
you know what's so funny? I get this question a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, interestingly, I know
Yeah.
that a lot of women get it. Like,
A lot
especially
of
if you're a
women,
woman
yes, that
at the
is
forefront,
ministry,
yeah.
marketplace,
Yeah.
family. So it is interesting you say that, what you said about men not being asked the same question. I remember a lady actually saying that, why is it that men don't get asked this question and all of that? And I was like, to be honest, it's not the same. Like you just rightly said, a lot goes in. It's like how people say, this it might sound like I'm digressing, but people have a higher standard for Christians. You always hear things like, and you call yourself a Christian.
Yes.
So there's an expectation.
Yes.
And there is an expectation because there's a grace that has been given. There's an identity that we connect with. It's the same thing for women.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I saw someone criticizing a man of God that had an issue. And then I looked at the person criticizing. I'm like, but you too.
You are not. Exactly. But they have an understanding of what the standard is.
Yes.
Even though they may not even follow it themselves.
Yeah,
It's quite hypocritical.
Like, what's happening here?
But it's something that there's a general law. I feel like there are laws of life. And when it comes to women, I believe that God has graced us for multiplicity, if I use that word right.
Yeah.
It is, we have capacity to actually be all of these things. And it is a wonder, as it should be, even to the male counterparts and to the people of the world, that women can actually raise families, be amazing wives, run businesses, have, enterprises or whatever, ministries, and they are still holding themselves together somehow. It is a wonder, and it should be marveled at, I believe. And in some cases, you can ask the question like, okay, how do you actually do it, if there's anything like that? And so for me, one of the things I've always said is I follow the voice of the one who leads me. So every single time, I'm not any of these things apart. They are not disconnected. I am always a wife. I am always a mother. I'm always a woman who is working and delivering value, looking to change the quality of life of humanity in one way or the other, different expressions. So I don't turn it off. They are just certain expressions that create demands per season. So my being a mother can be more demanding in a particular season. If I just gave birth, it is imperative that my child gets all of my attention in that season of my life. Now, I don't stop being an entrepreneur, or I don't stop being a woman in ministry, but I'm giving a lot of focus to that in that season of my life. Now, my children can grow up a little bit. I don't stop being a mother. I still point to them. I still, give to them. And one of the things I say, and I advise other women who have to work as much as I do, I've learned it, and since I learned it, it hasn't left me, has always been quality over quantity. So even when it comes to things like my spending time with my children, that's been my secret hack. When I'm with them, I'm with them. Like I'm with them, I'm pouring into them, we're sharing insights, I'm listening in, we're having quality time. So people can actually be with their children all day.
I'll be on the phone.
And nothing.
Yeah.
I can be with my kids for 1 hour, and that 1 hour is as if I've been with mileage. It's as if I've been with them for like a year because of what is poured in. And I've always said that time in and of itself means nothing but the wisdom and the knowledge that you pour, that is poured into it, and what you make of it. That's what makes time make meaning. And so truly, I think that for me, it has always been being able to focus and put my attention on what my maker is putting his finger on per time, to a certain degree. So I'm not just all doing 50% across board. I'm giving my 100% to everything that I have, but then there will be something that requires my focus at that particular season, and that's what I would then pour myself into the most. And then things that never change. So my business could change. The form of ministry can change, but my children are there. My husband is there. And so those ones that are static, I always, or like constant, I always focus on quality over quantity. So spending time with my husband, quality time, it will make meaning. Spending time with my children, my friends, my core, my people, it's going to be quality time that makes meaning. And I take advantage of even the little ones I get. Like my sister who brought me here today, it's like during those moments we bond, we talk, we share, I may not be able to do that tomorrow because I have to be at a meeting, but the one we had yesterday is still speaking for us. Do you get what I mean? So that's how, for me, I just feel like my life is balanced on Christ. It's really balanced on Jesus. And he tells me what to focus on per time while I'm being all of these things all at once. So, and I there's something my mentor always says, that my supply is more than my demand. I'm tapping from a high supply grace for a high demand life. And so there's always high supply. So every time God demands anything of me, it's because he has given me the grace and capacity for it. I just need to reach for it. So, yeah.
So, but do you find it unfair?
No. I think it's a privilege to be able to express the dimension of God. That's how I see it. There might be moments where certain things are unfair, or not balanced. But I always say this, and I would say, I usually talk to wives, because I also have a ministry for wives. So I tell wives a lot that do not feel cheated for what you have been graced for. So do not feel cheated for doing what you've been graced for, because it's not you doing it, it's a grace that has been supplied to you. So if I have the grace to be a wife and a mother and a business person and maybe my husband has just one, or your husband has just two, and he's doing those ones, I can't compare, because at that moment, I'm responding to a higher power, a higher force, a higher grace. And so I don't feel cheated. I feel like it's an opportunity for me to express the dimension of God. I honestly believe, and I might be delulu, but I believe that women are literally, they are an expression of God in a way that you can't even fathom. Just the idea of being able to have, and I know this is sensitive because not everybody can, biologically carry their own children, but just because you are even designed to be able to bring life into this world, you are no longer on the same playing field as your male counterparts. I'm sorry. It's just different. I may be biased, but it's just different. And I don't feel cheated. I feel like there might be days that it feels like, oh my God, it's so unfair. But then when you think about the power and the grace that is available for that, you are like, what? Do you know that there are some loads my husband carry I can't? My husband thinks about house, family, rent, or those things. I have never processed, I've hardly had to process that. So he may also be feeling cheated, but all of us have to carry according to the grace that has been given to us. So he goes out every day and he's doing what he has to do because of the family. I'm doing what I have to do because of the family, because I've been graced to do it. So I think we should all see it as we've been given graces, and each man according to their capacity. And if you've been given capacity to do 5, why will you feel cheated? That's a blessing. It's a privilege. Being a woman is such a privilege. I feel like if God was called our mother, people would relate more. That's my bias. Because you know that your mother will go, all things being equal. That's my personal bias.
They try to do that in the country, I think in the UK.
Oh, really? I just feel because you can honestly relate to the love of a mother. That's how I feel. Mothers would do anything, So at least,
That's funny.
yeah. But I just had
funny.
to add that.
That's funny.
So I think it's
No,
a
I mean,
privilege.
I won't lie. Like, I actually once met a person. Well, no, I didn't really meet her, but a mentor of mine told me about her because he was mentoring her.
Okay.
Who had a problem actually understanding a father's love.
It's a thing. Oh.
Yeah, because they feel like, so he's my father. So it's almost like there's no intimacy with God.
No, you don't
because
understand.
Of, that social construct.
No, it's a real thing. I do a lot of healing sessions with women, emotional healing. And this is something that almost always comes up. Because people cannot relate with God as that intimate relationship because of earthly fathers. And it's one of the things I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and I said, God, men really need to touch the heart of God, the heart of their heavenly Father, so they can father well, because it is doing a disservice to a generation. In fact, generations. A lot of the brokenness in our societies as a result of the absence of earthly father's love. And it is God's design, so that God designed the father to pour love into his family so that they can touch him. But a lot of men are not doing that. It's a thing. Like, a lot of women being in relationships that are not healthy, all of that, father wounds. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. So we need to in fact, there needs to be an intervention in men to understand what real fatherhood is like, because they are depriving a whole generation of experiencing the love of the Heavenly Father. I'm always saying, my friends even say it a lot, that God, I feel like you're so close to God because of how you and your father are. And I can't deny it. It is true. Like, the problem I now had with God was when he would not respond to me, because I always had a father that was responsive to me. So my own trauma is now reversed. In like, God, why are you not answering me? Because that's not what I know. That's not what I'm used to. I'm used to a father that will always respond, and I know that he responds. So I'm saying that the impact of a father in any child's life cannot be overemphasized. I don't know how we got there, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you that the very word father means source, right?
Yes.
There are as a matter of fact, I actually do believe that one of the most attacked institutions right now is the role of a father.
100%.
And when I think that's always been my bias within, when I hear, when I speak to women programs, that's always been my bias, because I always feel like, I always tell them, I say, well, me, I'm called to men.
Yes. We need more men called to men.
No, I mean, I always say it because I kind of understand, what's currently happening to a lot of young men. There's a lot of brokenness there.
Yes.
There's a lot of lack of purpose.
Yes.
And I actually feel there is a need for conversations because I remember speaking to one of my mentors, and he was just telling me stories of mistakes he made in life as a man, and I think I and my partners were there, and I think after I came out, I said, this is how I know this man truly loves me, and because I felt like for him to have shown me his scars, it also prevented me from making those. I couldn't explain it. It was almost like, as he was telling me about his mistakes, he was imparting in me the ability to not make those mistakes.
Them.
That's so
and
powerful. A lot of young men did not necessarily have that experience or have the privilege of anyone who stood in that. It kind of reminds me of this movie Forge.
I haven't seen it, and I
think you should. It's a great movie by Priscilla Shearer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually a very great movie that talks about the importance of mentoring young men, to becoming responsible people who will take a place in society, and I actually think that if we can fix it right there, honestly, we would find a lot of transformation in society.
Yes.
But I mean, I think we will, because it's an area that that I think a lot of people
I'm beginning
have
to.
ignored, and they just feel like men will be okay.
And I think that's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
Growing up, it's always like, you'll be fine. And that's, I have a son now and I'm so deliberate. Myself and my husband, we are like so deliberate because we understand the impact. I mean, FA does what he does with the Finishing Church, and the breed of men that he's raising in the Finishing Church for me is so encouraging because I see the impact of that. And even the next generation, like our children, I'm seeing how intentional of a father he is. I, as well as a mother, I don't want to be an enabler, because that's what you find over the years. Mothers enable their sons to not be men according to the word of the Lord, and so I'm deliberate now as well about my son connecting with him, connecting with his emotions, connecting with what is happening, not just saying tough it up, you're a man and all of those things. Now, when he cries, I'm asking questions. Why are you crying? Why do you feel the way you feel? I'm not saying, you're a man now, don't cry. No, I'm very deliberate about those things because those are the things that have caused men to just be like on the move. And because men don't deal with their emotions properly, they now have to lean into other vices because it must come out somewhere.
Yeah, it must. But I think one of the challenges that I am also seeing, and that has posed an issue to me too when it comes to raising men, is that I think women also misunderstand that men are not necessarily supposed to deal with emotions the same way women do.
Yeah, they're not supposed to deal with emotions the way women do, but they're supposed to deal with emotions.
Yes, and
so that's why
I'm
we're deliberate about that, and that's why the fatherhood part comes in, because he gets it as well as a dad, and so it's like and they're very close.
Because the man needs to toughen up too.
Yes, no, there's that part, but it's not toughening up in your own might and just your own strength.
Oh no,
there's a way to deal with your emotions to the place where you get to be strong, as opposed to ignore your emotions and forge strength and form strength. So you have to kind of deal with your emotions in order to get strengthened, not to suppress your emotions and pretend that you are a strong person.
Yeah, because actually what we see is an outburst of weakness.
It's an outburst of weakness. A lot of men are not as strong as they think they are because they always fall for rubbish. Sorry, but yeah. No, but it's true. Like at some level, you find that the strength that we talk about when it comes to men, it's the strength of character. It's the strength of your person. It's the strength of your values, your essence, your core. It's not really just the muscles. The muscles are there, they're great. But really and truly, it is about the strength of your person. And so more men need to invest in that and see that, okay, that's where real strength is, and not in just the external, because that's how they fall prey to things they're not supposed to fall prey to.
I will not dig deep.
Yes.
No I will not dig deep into that because I really don't know what conversation.
We're moving on.
Well, moving on. So, I mean, how do people reconcile the idea of a God-designed blueprint with the unpredictability of life? Because there's also the fact that, there are different ways people identify meaning, right? Yeah. And we spoke about identity and how it affects meaning and how it affects how we navigate the world, and even what opportunities we gravitate towards and what we don't gravitate towards. That's something identity does.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that life throws you very unexpected curveballs. That's sometimes, someone once defined life in a very interesting way.
Pot of beans?
No, not even
okay,
pot of beans is nice.
Joking.
Pot of beans is nice. You've got to eat it. Just add bread. The bread of life. Someone said add the bread of life, which is Jesus. The beans will be sweet. But then,
I love that.
So someone said life is pain. I said, And another person said life is just whatever you choose to make it. And we are here talking about a God design blueprint, right? And I think where I found people struggle and where the conversation has been is around making meaning of the pain that life throws at you. I've seen people go through things that you can't really explain.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes our theology also falls short of being able to interpret it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it gets. I always just tell people, I say, man, talk to God.
Yes.
Okay, just run there, But is purpose a definitive event, or is it something that just keeps changing over time, or is it something that is situational, or is it something that runs through a whole group of unpredictable events? Like, how do you interpret purpose in a way that that captures the unpredictability of
Of
life?
life. I think, first of all, the thing about the unpredictability of life is that that's what makes God God. I feel like if we could figure everything out, he's no longer God. And my faith, tells me that the just shall live by faith. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. So at a very, grand, like a very grand platform, life is an adventure because it's an adventure of faith. There's a lot of trusting, a lot of believing that, what my God has said will happen. What he has said will come to pass. So what do you do when it doesn't? How do you navigate all
How
of
do you
that?
navigate that?
Yeah, how do you navigate that? I think I have a book. My second book is called I Saw the Lord.
Okay.
And it actually was birthed from a place of pain.
Okay.
So pain that I didn't understand. Pain that I didn't know why. I didn't know why I had to go through that. A lot of it was health related, and then it started affecting my emotional well-being, my mental well-being. And so I struggled. It is so interesting that he's just as much the God of the valley. So that is one of the reasons why the book is titled I Saw the Lord. So he wasn't not there. He was there. And I saw him, not felt, I saw him in different things that I started to pay attention to, even though I was still in the pain and it wasn't taking away. And seeing him for me was worth it. And so that's one of the reasons why Job in the Bible would say, I heard about you, but now I see you with my eyes. And so that was the whole point, that everything I did and my righteousness all before now was based on what I heard. But everything that I've now gone through since then has made me see you. And I repent in dust. And so it caused him to even repent, to see that seeing God just makes you see how like this you are. And you are just like, no, you're just so majestic. You're just so God, right? And so one of the things that we do with pain is to stay with God there. I think it's safer with him. And just like you would tell them, go and ask God or go and meet God, that is always my go-to, especially in things that you don't understand. And we will always experience things that we don't understand. And it will hurt and it will be painful. But who we become in the process, and it's not that every point of pain produces purpose. Not every pain produces purpose, but every pain can produce purpose. But not every pain does. It matters how you journey through it. So some people are so overwhelmed by what they experience that there's no coming out of it. There's no light. They don't see any light. They can't journey.
Yeah, some people can't see any light at the tunnel.
It's just like it's nothing.
Some people can't even see the side of the tunnel.
They can't see this side of the tunnel. So it's like I'm just in this darkness, and so that's why you have to hold on to God, because if it's God, and you are with Him in it, and you are crying with Him in it, you will find him somehow. And it's just a matter of, where you're looking at. Now, in terms of purpose, I would say that purpose is not disconnected from identity. So it's the other side of identity. So it's like a coin. So they're the same, technically almost the same thing. But the difference is that purpose is like the why. It's like you're Elijah. Purpose is why you are Elijah. And you don't stop being Elijah, and that purpose never stops, irrespective of whatever expression you find yourself having to birth or create. So purpose is something that you always are. So you can find yourself in a village in Cameroon because of a circumstance you didn't even prepare for or expect, but you can still be living purposefully because purpose is also who you are. It's an expression of who you are. It's the why you exist. And you will always have a why you exist wherever you find yourself. So the same thing I said about identity applies. Your understanding of that purpose evolves. Over time, you start to know, you get a certain level of understanding, you journey a bit more, you get another level. So it's not like the purpose is just being uncovered. The purpose is being uncovered. So it's not that it's being created or you have another purpose or now you're not having, because you're starting this business venture, you have another purpose. No, your purpose is what it is. You can express it at any point in time. Most of what we call purpose in our time and our world is our assignments. And assignments change.
Okay.
So identity, purpose, assignments. Identity is what has been predetermined and given to you by God. Purpose is the why it was given to you. And assignments are the things you do that validates your identity and your purpose. Do you get what I'm saying? So assignments are the things that now validate it, that are like, oh, okay, connects, I see. So some assignments don't even look like they correlate. They look like they're just so, but give it time. You will see at the core of it is your desire to either empower someone, enlighten somebody, rebuild broken walls, re-engineer people's minds. It at the core, it will be that. So yes.
So if you were supposed to tell someone how you were able to manage the conflict that happened, being...
Sorry, I'm already laughing. So continues.
Do you know the question already?
No, there's just the conversation about conflict is just funny already.
No, so typically there will be that season where you went through pain, you wrote a book, I think obviously it built your philosophy towards life, right? What has life taught you so far, and how has it formed your philosophy of success in terms of through your pain that you've gone through, birthing, still showing up for people, being there for the family, the children, the ministry?
I said this to someone recently. I was like, I think a group of people actually. I was called to minister somewhere, and I said to them that my life is beyond me. And that's what I've come to learn. That you see, life is bigger than one person. And it is so interesting that one person is still pivotal to the fulfillment. So, one thing I've come to realize now is that my life is not my own. Life is beyond me. Life is beyond us, but we are key players in it. So even though life is beyond us, it still takes one person, it still takes one life for there to be fulfillment of life. And so I see that one of the things I've really learned is that the purpose for which I was made compels me. So irrespective of pain, joy, happiness, excitement, the purpose for which I have been created compels me to do the things that my God will have me do per time, irrespective of what that thing is, or the inconvenience of my soul in the process. And so, so sometimes it can be that, people feel like life is pain, life is, painful. It can be, but I choose to see life as being beyond us. Life is truly an expression of, it's us living out an expression of God's breath in the earth. And so when you see the mandate of God for humanity, you realize that he created with intention. He created with multiplication in mind. He created with fruitfulness in mind. It is man's deviation from the original intention of God that has caused life to actually be the way it is today, that makes people see it as pain and all of those things. But even in the midst of it, because God cannot be boxed, there's always a redemption plan for humanity, and we are part of the redemption plan. Jesus Christ is the ultimate redemption plan, but man in and of himself is still designed to be fruitful and multiply. And so the more we express the dimensions of God in fruitfulness, the more we multiply that life, because the mandate was, fill the earth. Like actually feel it. So if we're not feeling it with what is, what we have carried from him to this place, it will always be void. It will still be void. It will still be dark. It will still be filled with pain. So most people are filling it with the wrong things and filling the earth with things that will not edify the next person. And that's why people are feeling as much frustration and pain as they are. So we are still God's redemption plan. No? We have to still feel it with him so that people can start to feel what life really is.
That's quite an interesting perspective.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lady Kemz.
I've had such a great time.
Yes,
I didn't even know time
I
has
didn't
gone.
know the time had gone so
Same.
fast. Like I looked at the time, I'm like,
Yes.
I need to release this one. But now I think I'll just ask you a few questions.
Okay.
And then you just answer. So a young lady in her 20s, just early 20s, right now, what message do you have for her?
Seek mentorship. Does it have? Can it be that short?
No, I mean.
Okay. I would say for a young lady in her 20s right now, seek quality mentorship and guidance. Read books that will edify your mind. Reduce as much as you can. You should really social media contents that don't edify you. Curate your feed so that it will be something that actually feeds you healthy meals. So curate your Instagram. If you're on TikTok, if you're whatever, Snapchat, you have to be deliberate about curating the content that you want to partake of, because it is forming your ideologies, and your ideologies actually make or break you. So for a young lady in her 20s, I would say seek quality mentorship and guidance. Be deliberate about what you take in social media, reduce it, and read books. Read books that edify your mind. Read books that challenge your thinking, and stay close to the Father, stay close to God. You can never lose out in that way. So yes, and be in a community that empowers you as well. Be in a community that empowers you spiritually, empowers your personal development, empowers you career-wise. Yeah, definitely. That should help.
All right. So what's the right mindset right now for the people who are preparing for the new year?
Oh, okay. The right mindset for those who are preparing for the new year, I would say do a lot of reflection and spend a lot of time evaluating your choices. The daily choices we make actually have more effect in our lives than, our grand plan for a whole year. And so you want to empower yourself with things that will help you make choices every day that lead to the goals you want to set. So I'm sure a lot of people want to set goals. They want to have, they want to achieve certain things. But really and truly, evaluate where you're coming from, evaluate the choices you've made in the last year, and see whether, you're making choices that actually empower you and cause you to experience the life that you want to experience, because nothing changes just because the clock ticks. Actually, what changes has to be you. So if you don't put yourself in a situation where you are empowered, nothing actually is going to change in the year 2025. So it is about you being deliberate about sitting down, because the greatest school you will ever attend is you. So you have to sit down, because we spend so much time going to schools, taking courses, and learning about things, but not learning about ourselves. And we need to be intentional about sitting down to learn about ourselves and the choices. Like, why do I make the choices I make? Why do I choose the things I choose? Why am I prone to this particular behavior? Those are the things that actually start to make you, when you start to bring it to your awareness and your consciousness, you sit down, you write it down, go to the school of Kemi and learn about the behaviors that are empowering you or disempowering you. The ones that are empowering you, times 2.0, do it more. The ones that are disempowering you, switch and change them, and you can actually easily change them. I do trainings and I tell people that changing your mind about changing certain things actually is just as quick as literally changing your thoughts about the way you see it. So I hope that people are not overwhelmed at this time of the year, because people tend to be. But take time out to rest, but to reevaluate your life and see where you're making progress and where you're not. Yeah.
My next question was actually, Dirty December is here. Tell me,
What do you want me to tell you?
what's the right mindset?
Okay. I find that there's also a spirit in the air around this time. And it can be the spirit that triggers frivolities, crime. There's a spirit in the air that triggers frivolities, crime, indulging, self-absorption, a lot of negative things. And it makes you think, is this really about Christmas and the holidays? Or is there something else going on? And that is conversation for another day, another platform. But what I would say is, be aware of what you are doing part time. Be aware of why you are doing what you're doing part time. Be very intentional about the choices you make, the relationships you're keeping. I mean, I had to call the lady, my caregivers at home, the people, my helps. And I said, you're going to go home this Christmas, you're going to have fun, but you have to be aware of who you are just because you want to dance and party. These are the times where a lot of crime happens, a lot of negative things happen. In fact, even amongst my people, Christians, and they say it's about Jesus. It's not. Really and truly, if we want to tell ourselves the truth. So I believe that this is the time to actually spend time reflecting. There's nothing, December doesn't have to be dirty. You spend all the money in January, you're morose, and you cannot give of yourself because you didn't actually rest. You actually just spent on frivolities, and you spent more time feeding yourself with things that do not edify you. And now you can't give of yourself in the new year because you are actually not refreshed. Because we don't always know, and I always tell people there is what we call a rest diet and refreshing diet. Rest and refreshing are two different things. You can rest and not refuel. And so being able to understand what are the things that actually refuel me, it's not movies. A lot of movies don't refuel you. A lot of things, more often than not, it's actually listening to maybe a podcast like this, spending time with things that open up your mind. Yes, you may not actually be doing something active, but refueling your mind and refreshing your mind with things that edify actually prepares you for the new season or a new day or a new year. So spend time praying, spend time with family. But I don't advise anybody to do Dirty December. I don't believe in Dirty December. I don't believe any month really needs to be dirty. We can keep it pure, keep it holy, keep it clean, and be wise and be intelligent in how you spend. And the way the economy is actually going, you actually have to catch sense. Really and truly, because things are crazy in the markets. So you have to really borrow yourself some sense to know that, no, I can't be out here,
Dirty.
acting crazy and being dirty. I have to be clean and keep my finances in check. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Lady
Thank
Kemz.
you.
I mean, it's so good to have you here
I'm
today, and
happy.
I'm happy that you made it to come join us in these conversations today.
I can't believe it's finished already. I enjoyed myself and I can't believe
Really?
I did
Thank,
100%.
thank you so
I just
much.
realized that I really do like talking. So I always tell people that if you're not ready for me, please don't call me because once the tab opens, it's always hard to close it. But I had such a good time. And the questions you asked really sparked something in my heart and mind. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So, thank you very much for joining us on today's episode. I mean, we delved into this was actually an unusual episode because we actually went into the workings of the soul, in terms of what's the inner workings of an individual who is actually building from Africa. We went from identity to purpose to the meaning of life, and I really liked this conversation so much, and I'm sure you did also. So please like, subscribe, share with someone who needs to watch this that will help them actually change the way they go about approaching life and approaching the decisions that they make. So catch you also on the next episode. If you want to follow the speaker on this or the guest on this particular episode, her details will be in the comment section below. You'll find her website, you'll find the initiatives she leads, and you also find her personal handles to reach out to her if you really want to connect with her more. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great one. See you on the next episode.